No one could handle the Vampire King's daughter, until a single mom janitor did the impossible. Few mortals ever came close to this place, and those who did often left trembling, their hearts heavy with fear. This was the home of the Vampire King and his daughter, Selene, a woman whose beauty was as sharp as her mind, and whose presence demanded both awe and obedience. Inside the castle, the corridors were quiet, except for the occasional whisper of silk or the soft echo of footsteps. Candles flickered in iron holders, casting shadows that danced across the walls like living things. No servant dared linger here without reason, for the slightest mistake could bring the wrath of the royal family. Tonight, a new face walked quietly along the corridors. Lydia, a mortal single mother, carried a small broom and bucket, her shoes making soft scuffing sounds on the cold stone floor. She had arrived that morning as the castle's new janitor. Life had not been easy for her. Raising a young child alone meant constant struggle, and yet she had learned to carry herself with quiet strength. The castle intimidated her, but she was determined to do her work and return home safely. As Lydia swept near the gallery, she heard a soft thud from behind a closed door. Curiosity pricked her nerves, but she stepped closer, peeking through a small crack. Inside, a woman stood, her hair like midnight and her eyes glowing faintly in the candlelight. She was struggling with a small, glowing object that hovered in the air, shaking violently. Selene, the Vampire King's daughter, frowned. "Why won't you stay still?" she whispered, her voice soft but commanding. The object seemed almost alive, resisting her every command. Lydia's breath caught. She had heard rumors of the princess, how no one could approach her, how she had rejected countless suitors and friends alike. And yet, here she was, focused entirely on an object that seemed to hum with dangerous energy. Something in Lydia's heart stirred. Without thinking, she pushed the door open slightly. "Do you need some help?" she asked, her voice trembling only slightly. Selene froze, her eyes sharp as a hawk's narrowed. "Who dares speak to me?" she asked, her voice cold yet curious. No mortal had ever dared approach her without trembling or running. I'm just a janitor," Lydia said quickly. "I didn't mean to disturb you. I just thought maybe I could help." Selene tilted her head, studying her. There was something different about this woman, no fear, no bowing, no desperate pleading. Just honesty and a quiet strength that Selene could not ignore. Slowly, she lowered her hand. The glowing object trembled but obeyed her enough to stop floating erratically. "You have courage," Selene said finally, "or foolishness, perhaps both." Lydia's lips pressed into a line. "I've had to be brave," she said softly. "Life doesn't leave much room for fear when you're alone." The words struck Selene unexpectedly. She had spent centuries surrounded by people who feared her, obeyed her, or tried to use her. She had never met someone who faced the world without fear, someone so human yet so strong. For a long moment they just stared at each other. Then Selene spoke again. "Very well. You may enter, but one wrong move and you will regret it." Lydia stepped inside, careful not to startle the princess. The room was filled with strange artifacts, glowing crystals, ancient books, and enchanted objects that whispered softly when touched. The air smelled faintly of jasmine and old stone. "Why do you struggle with it?" Lydia asked, pointing at the floating object. "It is a binding artifact," Selene explained, her voice softer now. "It carries a curse, and no one in the castle dares touch it. I must master it, or it could destroy everything in this room." Lydia nodded. "Maybe I can hold it steady while you focus," she suggested, extending her hands carefully. Selene raised an eyebrow. "You dare?" I think it's worth trying," Lydia said, surprising even herself. She reached out, her fingers trembling slightly, and the object floated into her hands. It buzzed faintly but did not lash out. Selene's eyes widened. "Interesting," she murmured. "You are unlike anyone I have ever known." For the next hour the two worked together. Lydia's hand steadied the artifact, while Selene whispered incantations, slowly calming its energy. Neither spoke much, but the silence was not empty. It was filled with tension, curiosity, and a strange, growing respect. When the artifact finally settled, glowing faintly without motion, Selene stepped back. "You have done the impossible," she said, her voice a mixture of admiration and disbelief. "Most people would have screamed or fainted." "I just tried to help," Lydia replied, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Her heart raced not from fear, but from the closeness of someone so powerful, someone so alive in ways she had never encountered. Selene studied her as if trying to understand the strange human before her. Finally, she spoke again. "I must learn more about you," she said softly. "Come with me." Lydia hesitated. I can't. I have work and I should." "No," Selene interrupted, her eyes flashing. "Come." Now, reluctantly, Lydia followed. Selene led her through twisting corridors until they reached a small, hidden gallery. Ancient paintings hung on the walls, depicting battles, curses, and moments of triumph and sorrow. Candles flickered, casting shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. "Do you see this?" Selene asked, pointing to a painting of a vampire queen locked in a magical prison. "This is my great aunt. She defied the clan and was punished for it." "No one dare speak of her now." Lydia stepped closer. "She looks proud, brave." "Yes," Selene said, her voice distant. "Bravery can be dangerous in our world. Sometimes it is rewarded, sometimes it is punished. You seem brave too." Lydia looked at her, surprised. "Me? I'm just trying to survive, trying to take care of my child. That's all bravery I know." Selene's gaze softened, but only slightly. "There is more to you, I can feel it. You are different." The gallery fell silent, filled only with the flickering of candlelight. For a moment, Lydia forgot her fear, the vast difference between herself and the princess. She felt a strange connection to Selene, a pull she could not explain. Then, without warning, the candles flickered violently. A low hum filled the room, and Lydia realized they were surrounded by enchantments she could not see clearly. The doors slammed shut. What is happening?" Lydia whispered, fear creeping into her voice. Selene's eyes darkened. "The gallery is protected. No one may enter or leave without permission. You are trapped, but do not fear, I will not harm you." "Trapped," Lydia repeated, swallowing hard. "But I have to my child, you are safe. For now," Selene said softly. Her eyes lingered on Lydia's face in a way that made Lydia's heart pound. "Perhaps you will stay longer than you planned." And in that moment, Lydia realized her life had changed. She was no longer just a janitor in a strange castle. She had entered a world of shadows and power, where one misstep could mean death. And yet, one step could also mean a connection she had never dared to imagine. Selene turned away, but her voice floated back to Lydia like a whisper of wind. "No one has ever stayed this long with me. Most leave or are broken. Let us see what you are made of." Lydia shivered, not from fear, but from anticipation. She did not fully understand the power of the woman beside her or the world she had stepped into. But she knew she could not turn back. Something about Selene, something about this castle, had already begun to change her. Outside, the moon rose higher, casting silver light across the castle towers. Inside, in a hidden gallery filled with magic and shadows, two women, one immortal and bound by centuries of expectation, the other mortal and weary from life, began a journey that neither would forget. The night deepened, carrying whispers of secrets, power, and a strange, unspoken promise. And Lydia, the janitor who had dared the impossible, realized that the vampire king's daughter was no longer untouchable, at least not by her heart. The gallery remained silent after the doors had slammed shut. Candles flickered, sending long, dancing shadows across the walls, and the enchanted object that Lydia had helped calm now pulsed softly in its holder. Lydia's heart raced, not from fear, but from the thrill of being near Selene, the vampire king's daughter, whose presence carried both danger and fascination. Selene leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching Lydia closely. Her dark eyes glimmered in the candlelight, unreadable yet alive with curiosity. "Do you understand what you have done?" she asked softly. "Most mortals would have screamed and fled. You did not." Lydia swallowed. I wanted to help," she said, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "I've had to face hard things before. This is just another challenge." Seleni's lips curved into a small, almost imperceptible smile. "Your courage is unusual." "I am not accustomed to it." There was a pause. Outside the gallery the night remained still. Yet inside, a quiet tension grew between them, like the first spark of lightning before a storm. Neither knew how to explain it, and yet both could feel it, a connection born of respect, curiosity, and something far deeper, something neither had expected. "Why are you really here?" Selene asked finally, her voice soft, almost gentle. "Most mortals are weak, scared, or simple. You are none of these. You do not belong in this place." Lydia looked down at her hands. "I don't belong anywhere, really. I've been on my own for years, trying to take care of my child. I never thought I'd end up in a place like this. But I don't regret being here." Selene studied her quietly. For centuries, she had lived surrounded by fear and obedience. No one had ever spoken to her this way, with honesty, without trembling or bowing. Lydia's words, her calm strength, unsettled her in ways she did not yet understand. Finally, Selene stepped closer. Her presence was magnetic, filling the small gallery with power and grace. "Perhaps," she said, "you are more than I thought. Perhaps you are a challenge I welcome." Lydia's pulse quickened. A challenge from Selene could mean many things: danger, mystery, or even opportunity. She did not flinch. Instead, she met Selene's gaze steadily. "If it's a challenge, I'll do my best." For a moment the two simply stood there, caught in a delicate balance between curiosity and tension. Then Selene's expression shifted, her eyes softening. "There is a reason I am guarded," she said quietly. "No one has ever approached me without fear, without expectation." "You are different," Lydia smiled faintly. "Maybe different isn't so bad," she said. "Sometimes different is exactly what people need." Selene's lips quirked into another small smile, one that did not reach her eyes entirely. "Perhaps. We shall see." They spent the next hours exploring the gallery together. Selene showed Lydia paintings of long-forgotten battles, magical artifacts, and stories of ancestors whose choices had shaped the kingdom. Lydia listened intently, asking questions, showing interest, and offering her perspective not as a servant, but as a human with insight and empathy. Selene found herself intrigued. Lydia's view of the world was simple, practical, yet filled with depth. She spoke of love, of struggle, of life outside the walls of the castle, things Selene had never truly experienced. Her words were refreshing, grounding, and strange. "You live a difficult life," Selene said after a while, "and yet you do not seem defeated." "I have to keep going," Lydia replied. "My child depends on me. That gives me strength, and I've learned that even in darkness there can be light." Selene considered this, her expression thoughtful. "Light in darkness, perhaps that is what I have been missing all my life." As the night deepened, a soft wind stirred in the gallery, though no windows were open. The enchanted object Lydia had helped calm earlier glowed faintly again, as if sensing the bond forming between the two women. Selene approached Lydia, her voice lower, more intimate. "Do you know what it is like to live for centuries yet feel utterly alone? To be surrounded by people and yet never truly seen?" Lydia hesitated, unsure how to answer. I think I understand what it's like to feel alone, but I also think people can change that. Even someone like me, small and ordinary, can make a difference." Selene's gaze softened, a rare vulnerability showing through her usual composure. "You make me wonder if it is possible for me to change, to feel something beyond this endless expectation, beyond duty and fear." For a moment silence fell. The only sounds were the faint hum of magic and the distant echo of the castle's corridors. Lydia felt a strange warmth in her chest, a feeling she could not name, yet recognized in its power. Then Selene did something unexpected. She extended her hand and the glowing object floated from its pedestal into her palm. "I need you to help me with something," she said. "It is dangerous, but not in a way you cannot handle. I want to see if we can control it together." Lydia nodded, heart pounding. "I'm ready," she said. The two worked side by side, hands moving over the artifact, whispering incantations, steadying its energy. It pulsed between them, a symbol of the strange, delicate trust growing in the gallery. For hours they labored together, and for the first time Selene did not feel the crushing weight of isolation. "You are remarkable," Selene said softly, once the object finally settled completely. "I did not expect a mortal to succeed." Lydia smiled. "I didn't expect to succeed either. I just wanted to help." The words lingered between them, heavier than any magic. Selene's eyes softened, but only slightly. "You are unlike anyone I have ever known," she murmured. As the first light of dawn began to filter through the high windows, Selene suddenly tensed. Her expression darkened and she moved to the doors. Lydia followed, sensing the sudden shift in the air. "There are watchers," Selene said quietly, almost to herself. "People who do not trust this bond, who see weakness where there is none. You must be careful," Lydia frowned. "Watchers who?" Selene did not answer immediately. She turned to Lydia, eyes intense. "Some secrets of this castle are dangerous. Some truths are hidden for a reason. Yet you are here, and now you are part of this world whether you wish it or not." The doors of the gallery suddenly clicked. Magic sealed them once more. Lydia's breath caught. "Trapped again," she whispered. "Perhaps," Selene replied softly, her gaze lingering on Lydia. "Or perhaps the castle itself wants to see what will happen between us." Lydia felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. She had entered this world by chance, but she could feel that fate was weaving their paths together in ways she could not yet understand. Selene walked closer, her eyes searching Lydia's face. "I do not know what this means yet. I do not know if it is friendship, trust, or something else entirely, but I feel compelled to know." Lydia met her gaze steadily. "I don't know either, but I'm willing to see it through." For a moment the world outside the gallery seemed to vanish. Time slowed. Only the two of them existed, standing in the soft glow of candles, surrounded by magic and history, bound together by curiosity, courage, and the first sparks of an impossible bond. Then a sudden noise echoed through the castle, a footstep, deliberate and silent. Selene's eyes narrowed. "We are not alone," she said quietly. Lydia's heart skipped a beat. "What does that mean?" "It means," Selene said, her voice low and serious, "that not everyone will welcome you here. Some will see you as a threat, others as a tool, and some may try to hurt us." Lydia swallowed, feeling the weight of the castle's unseen dangers, yet she did not step back. She had faced hardships before, and she was not afraid of standing beside Selene, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Selene studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Very well. If you are to stay here, you must learn the rules, and the rules are not gentle. But I think you may survive them." Lydia felt a mixture of fear and excitement. She had stepped into a world of shadows, magic, and power beyond her understanding. And yet, for the first time in a long time, she felt alive, challenged, and connected in ways she had never imagined. The morning sun began to rise over the castle, spilling light across the stone towers. Inside, the gallery remained quiet, but a bond had been forged, fragile, new, and full of tension. Lydia, the mortal janitor, had survived the first night in the Vampire King's castle. She had faced power, magic, and centuries of isolation, and she had done it with courage, empathy, and heart. And Selene, the Vampire King's daughter, had felt something stir inside her, a spark of emotion, curiosity, and longing that she had thought long dead. For now the castle was calm, but beyond the walls, in the shadows and whispers of the kingdom, the watchers waited. The challenges had only begun. And the bond between mortal and immortal, janitor and princess, had only just started to grow. The castle corridors were quiet, but the air was thick with tension. Selene walked swiftly, her long dark cloak brushing against the cold stone floors, her eyes sharp and alert. Behind her, Lydia followed closely, holding her broom like a walking stick, though she didn't need it. The janitor's simple courage had carried her through the first night, but now the castle's mysteries were testing her in ways she had never imagined. Earlier that day, a whisper had reached Selene. A curse, long dormant, tied to her family's past, had stirred. Its magic was subtle but dangerous, affecting not only Selene but anyone close to her. That meant Lydia, who had already proven herself fearless, was at risk. Selene's dark eyes flicked toward her companion, worry threading through the usual calm. "We need to go to the library," Selene said softly. "There are old records there, spells, histories, warnings. We must understand what has awakened." Lydia nodded, feeling the gravity of the moment. "I'm ready. Whatever it is, we'll face it together." Selene paused, studying her. "You are braver than anyone I know," she admitted. "I do not know if that is foolish or wise." "Maybe both," Lydia said with a small, encouraging smile. "But courage is what we have." The library was massive, filled with shelves that reached the ceiling, stacked with books bound in leather, parchment, and even enchanted materials that shimmered faintly. Candles floated in midair, illuminating the room with warm light. Selene moved quickly, pulling a large tome from the highest shelf. Dust rose into the air, and the smell of old paper and magic filled the space. "This," Selene said, opening the heavy book, "is the history of our bloodline and the curse that has haunted it for centuries. My family has always believed it dormant, but now it stirs again, and you mortal are too close to me to be safe." Lydia leaned over the book, her fingers tracing the strange symbols. "What does it do?" she asked softly. Selene's gaze darkened. "It feeds on fear, doubt, and loneliness. It strengthens itself when hearts are weak or isolated. That is why it has chosen this moment, because I allowed myself to care for someone you." Lydia's chest tightened. "You mean me?" Selene's lips pressed together. "Yes, you are human, unprepared for the power that surrounds this place, but I cannot let it harm you. I must protect you." The words were heavier than any spell. Lydia felt a warmth in her chest, a strange mixture of fear and gratitude. Selene, the powerful vampire princess, wanted to protect her, not because she had to, but because she cared. They worked together through the day, studying the ancient texts, trying to find a way to weaken the curse. Selene taught Lydia to recognize magical traces, to understand the subtle energy that pulsed in enchanted objects. Lydia, though mortal and inexperienced, learned quickly, her practical mind complementing Selene's centuries of knowledge. As the hours passed, Selene noticed something surprising. Lydia's courage, empathy, and determination were not just strengths. They were also calming her own fears. For centuries, she had carried the weight of immortality, of expectation, and of power. Now, for the first time, she felt a lightness, a sense that perhaps she did not have to face the darkness alone. Late in the afternoon, a sudden tremor shook the castle. Books fell from shelves and the floating candles flickered wildly. The curse was growing stronger. Selene grabbed Lydia's arm, pulling her close. "We have to move," she shouted over the rising hum of magic. "Follow me." They ran through winding corridors, past towering statues and enchanted mirrors, until they reached a hidden chamber beneath the castle. The room was circular, with glowing runes etched into the stone floor. Selene placed her hands on the runes, murmuring incantations she had not spoken aloud in centuries. Lydia watched in awe. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Binding the curse," Selene said, "but it is unstable. It reacts to emotions, to fear, to doubt. You must remain calm, mortal. Focus your mind." Lydia took a deep breath. "I can do that. I trust you." Selene's eyes softened, and for a moment the centuries of pride and isolation melted away. "Thank you," she whispered. Together they focused their energy. Seleni's magic intertwined with Lydia's human willpower, creating a protective field that pushed back the dark energy. The air crackled, shadows twisting and writhing, but neither of them flinched. They stood together, mortal and immortal, facing a danger that had haunted the castle for generations. Finally, with a flash of light and a low, fading hum, the magic calmed. The runes dimmed and the room fell silent. The curse had not been destroyed, it was too old, too powerful, but it had been held at bay, weakened enough to be manageable. Selene sank to the floor, exhausted. "You were remarkable," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I did not think a mortal could contribute, let alone help me succeed." Lydia smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We did it together. You taught me. I just followed your lead." Selene's dark eyes softened and she reached out, placing a hand on Lydia's shoulder. "No one has ever made me feel like this," she admitted. "Alive yet human, seen yet free." Lydia felt a warmth in her chest she could not explain. "I feel the same way," she whispered. "Even if I am mortal, I feel like I belong here with you." For a long moment, they simply sat together in the quiet chamber, the weight of the castle and its magic pressing around them, yet unable to touch the fragile bond forming between them. But the peace did not last. A shadow moved outside the chamber door, a figure watching silently, waiting for the moment to strike. Selene sensed it immediately, her instincts sharp and unyielding. "They are here," she said quietly, rising to her feet. "Someone watches us. Someone who does not wish to see you safe or alive." Lydia's heart skipped a beat. "What do we do?" "We face them," Selene said, her voice calm but firm. "Together, I will not allow them to harm you, not now, not ever." The door creaked open, and a figure stepped into the chamber, a former advisor of the Vampire King, exiled for betrayal years ago. His eyes gleamed with envy and resentment, and he carried a small talisman pulsing with dark magic. "You should not have come here, mortal," he said, his voice cold. "And you, princess, you are weaker than you think." Selene's eyes narrowed. "You underestimate her," she said sharply, "and you will regret it." The advisor raised his hand, the talisman glowing brighter, but Lydia did not flinch. She stepped forward, standing beside Selene. "We are not afraid," she said firmly, "and you will not harm us." Selene's gaze softened as she looked at Lydia. Together they channeled their combined energy, Selene's centuries of power and Lydia's unwavering human courage. The talisman wavered, then shattered with a loud crack, its dark energy dispersing into the air. The advisor staggered back, eyes wide in shock. "Impossible," he gasped, before disappearing in a swirl of shadows. Selene exhaled, a mixture of relief and exhaustion washing over her. She turned to Lydia, her dark eyes filled with admiration and something more, a rare vulnerability she had never shown to anyone. "You were extraordinary," Selene said softly. I did not think a mortal could do this. Yet here you are, standing beside me, stronger than anyone I have known." Lydia smiled, though her own exhaustion was clear. "I only did what I had to. You taught me, and I trusted you." For a moment the two simply stood there, their bond deepened by the trial they had faced together. The curse had been held at bay, the threat had been defeated, and yet something lingered, a feeling that this was only the beginning, that more challenges awaited, testing not only their courage but the bond forming between them. Selene reached out, brushing a lock of hair from Lydia's face. "You have changed me," she whispered. "I thought immortality meant endless solitude, but with you I see a different path, a path I never imagined possible." Lydia felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mixture of pride, affection, and something deeper she could not yet name. "And you've changed me too," she said softly. "Even in this castle, in a world I never expected, I feel alive. I feel like I belong." Outside, the castle remained silent, but the night carried a sense of watchfulness, as if the shadows themselves were observing the bond between mortal and immortal. The danger had passed for now, but Lydia knew that the castle held many secrets still, and Seleni's world was far from safe. And yet, as they stood together in the quiet chamber, surrounded by magic and history, both of them knew one truth: they were stronger together. Mortal and immortal, janitor and princess, courage and power, their bond had been tested, and it had survived. The castle was unusually quiet that evening. A pale mist clung to the stone towers, curling around the battlements like fingers reaching for the sky. Inside, the air was thick with anticipation. Selene stood at the top of the grand staircase, her dark cloak flowing behind her. Her eyes, sharp and thoughtful, scanned the halls. Something was coming, a force she had not yet faced, a shadow older and stronger than any she had known. Lydia followed closely behind, her heart steady but alert. Though she was mortal, she had proven her courage time and again. Tonight would test them both, not just their strength but their bond, trust, and determination. "We must act carefully," Selene said softly, her voice calm but firm. "The curse is not gone. It lingers in the corners of this castle, in places I cannot see. And there are others, those who wish to use it for their own gain." Lydia nodded. "I'm ready. We've faced danger before and we've survived. Together we can do it again." Selene studied her for a long moment, eyes softened with a rare vulnerability. "You have changed me, Lydia," she whispered. "Before you, I thought my life would always be one of solitude. Now I see something I never imagined: hope, trust, perhaps even love." Lydia felt warmth rise in her chest. "And you've changed me too," she replied. "Even here in this world of shadows and magic, I feel alive. I feel like I belong." The castle groaned, as though responding to the presence of the unseen threat. From the shadows, a figure emerged, a dark, twisted being, an echo of the curse that had haunted Selene's family for centuries. Its eyes glowed with malevolence, and its steps left faint traces of dark energy on the stone floor. Selene stepped forward, her expression fierce. "You will not harm anyone here," she said. "Not today." The creature hissed, moving closer. It was powerful, older than anything Selene had faced, and it seemed to feed on fear and doubt. But this time, Selene was not alone. Lydia stood beside her, unwavering, her hands trembling slightly but her heart full of courage. "You will not win," Lydia said firmly. "We face you together." The creature lunged, its shadowy form swirling around them. Selene raised her hands, casting a protective barrier that glowed with silver light. Lydia focused, centering herself, willing her courage and trust into the space between them. Together, their energy intertwined, creating a force strong enough to push back the darkness. The battle was not of brute force alone. It was a contest of wills, of heart, and of trust. Every flicker of fear could strengthen the creature. Every moment of courage and unity weakened it. Selene and Lydia moved in perfect rhythm, their bond a beacon of light against the shadows. At one point the creature struck, targeting Lydia. Selene's eyes widened in alarm, but Lydia did not flinch. She reached out, holding her hand steady, and whispered, "I trust you. We can do this together." Selene's heart ached with both fear and admiration. She channeled all her centuries of power into the protective barrier, weaving Lydia's courage into it. Light burst from their joined energy, piercing the darkness. The creature shrieked, retreating into the shadows, unable to withstand the unity and strength of mortal and immortal working as one. Finally, with a final surge of combined will, the darkness dissipated, leaving only a faint whisper in the air. The castle fell silent once more. Selene sank to the floor, exhausted but triumphant. Lydia knelt beside her, placing a reassuring hand on her arm. "You were incredible," Lydia said softly. "We did it." Selene looked at her, eyes shining with emotion. "No one has ever fought by my side like this," she admitted. "No one has ever stood with me, not fully, not willingly. You have shown me what it means to trust, to care, to fight for someone other than myself." Lydia smiled, her heart full. "And you've shown me what it means to be brave in a world I never understood. You've given me a chance to be part of something larger than myself." They rose together, standing in the dim candlelight. The castle, which had once felt like a prison, now seemed alive, filled with possibility, hope, and the promise of change. Selene led Lydia to the gallery, the place where their journey had begun. The enchanted object that had first brought them together rested quietly on its pedestal, its energy calm and steady. Selene touched it lightly, then turned to Lydia. "This is the place where everything changed," Selene said, "where I realized that perhaps I do not need to face eternity alone. You've brought something to me that I thought I had lost forever: hope, trust, and the courage to feel again." Lydia's eyes softened. "And you've shown me that even in a world full of shadows, light can exist. We've faced danger, magic, and fear, and we've survived. Together." Selene's hand found Lydia's, their fingers intertwining naturally. "Perhaps we are stronger together than apart," she murmured. Lydia squeezed her hand gently. "I believe that," she said. "No matter what comes next, we face it as one." The castle remained quiet, but the world outside was changing. Whispers of old magic, long-forgotten curses, and hidden dangers lingered in the shadows. Yet inside the walls, two hearts had found a connection stronger than fear or doubt, a bond forged in courage and trust. Days passed, and life in the castle began to settle. Selene continued her duties as the Vampire King's daughter, but her perspective had shifted. She walked with more ease, smiled more often, and shared moments of genuine conversation and laughter with Lydia. The mortal janitor had become more than a helper. She was a partner, a confidant, and a source of light in Selene's otherwise shadowed life. Lydia, in turn, found herself growing stronger and more confident. She navigated the castle's strange corridors and magical spaces with ease, her practical mind complemented by Selene's centuries of wisdom. Together, they faced challenges, political intrigue, magical anomalies, and the lingering presence of old curses. But they faced them with unity and courage. One evening, Selene took Lydia to the castle balcony. The moon hung low in the sky, casting silver light across the towers. Below, the kingdom slept, unaware of the darkness that had once threatened it and the strength that now protected it. "You have changed me," Selene said softly, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. "I thought I would always be alone, bound by duty and expectation. But you have shown me that it is possible to care, to trust, and to love, even in a world full of shadows." Lydia reached for her hand. "And you've changed me too. I've learned courage, patience, and hope. I've learned that even ordinary people can face extraordinary challenges, especially when they are not alone." They stood together, silent for a while, feeling the cool breeze and the quiet power of the castle around them. The bond between mortal and immortal had grown stronger, tempered by trials, fear, and trust. Yet even in this moment of peace, a soft whisper echoed through the night, a reminder that the castle's secrets were never truly gone, that magic, curses, and destiny continued to weave their threads through time. Selene turned to Lydia, determination and warmth in her eyes. "Whatever comes next, we will face it together," she said. "And I will be with you," Lydia replied, her voice steady, "through darkness, through danger, and through whatever else life brings." The first light of dawn began to rise over the horizon, painting the castle in soft shades of gold and pink. For the first time in centuries, Selene felt a sense of peace. She had faced danger, confronted her fears, and discovered the strength of human courage. She had also discovered love, not the fleeting kind that faded with time, but a bond built on trust, courage, and shared trials. Lydia looked at her, smiling softly. "We did it," she said. "We survived, and we are stronger because of it." Selene's eyes glimmered with unshed emotion. "Yes," she said, "stronger together. Mortal and immortal, light and shadow, we are stronger together." As the sun rose higher, spilling light across the castle towers, both women knew that their journey was far from over. Challenges would come, curses would stir, and the world outside would remain unpredictable. But inside the castle, in the quiet strength of their bond, they had found something eternal: courage, trust, and a love that bridged the divide between mortal and immortal. And so, in the heart of the castle, surrounded by history, magic, and the lingering echoes of past trials, Selene and Lydia faced the dawn, united, brave, and ready for whatever the future might bring.